Hello, everybody, and welcome to Plugin School. I'm Caristina LaFay, your host. My wonderful co-host this week and every week so far is Tomas. Thank you, Tomas, for helping out during class. Um, Today, we're going to be talking about best practices for plugin authors. Um, there's no there's no real standard for how to create plugin descriptions and whatnot. Um, so I wanted to try to start the trend, as it were, um, to make sure plugin users get to know what your plugins, these wonderful plugins that everybody's writing, you need to let people know what they do and how to use them. Um, the video link for last week's plugin school, choosing the right LLM for your plugins. I'm dropping that in chat right now because it's just easier for me to copy and paste. Um, Otherwise, you can also just subscribe to my YouTube channel so you'll always get notified when these course recordings go up um, within the week after each class. If your screen doesn't look like mine, that's fine. I use dark mode. Yours is probably pink if you're using the default color scheme for Sudowrite. And this right here is our entire class. What do we mean by best practices? So when you browse the plugin directory and you click on a link for a specific plugin, the plugin author provides a description, but not all descriptions are equally helpful. So what are the best things that we as plugin authors can do to help users determine whether or not to use their plugins, our plugins? And I've broken it down into this list of bullet points, which we'll look at in a variety of different plugins. For our purposes, it's going to be my plugins because I can edit them. I can't edit other people's plugins. But we're going to go over how your plugins should have a distinctive title. And I've talked about this in every class so far, that using emojis in your title is one way to make sure it's easy to find in a long list of plugins in that drop down menu up here. See if there's, if there's a bunch of plugins with no emojis, they just kind of all blend together, but you can see that this one here and this one here just kind of pop out, and it just makes things better if you can recognize an emoji that goes with a plugin. Does somebody have an open mic? We also want to know, what does the plugin do? That's what the description is for, is to tell people what the plugin does, obviously, but not everybody writes a full description. But while you're writing full descriptions, you don't want giant walls of text. Nobody likes walls of text. It's hard on the eyes, especially when you can't format your descriptions to use bold or italics or anything like that. So you need to make sure you have enough white space in your plugin description. It's good to tell people how many words the plugin can use as input, how many words it can create as output, what model the plugin uses. That's becoming more important as we discover the strengths and weaknesses of all the different plugin or all the different LLMs that Sudowrite gives us access to when creating plugins. Tips, tricks, and warnings for using your plugin, which you can determine when you're testing your plugins. Example prompts for your plugins, any list of related plugins you've written, and you might also want to consider contact info for feedback. I think that was the end of that list. I can't see below. Yeah, that was the end. Okay. So as we get into this, I have a bunch of tabs open with a bunch of my different plugins, and most of them are on the edit screen, but some of them I should just actually reopen them later because we want to look at them as a user first. All right, so we've got the plugin directory, which hopefully we've all got bookmarked. I mean, you can always get to it here by clicking on Explore Plugins from within any of your projects. But if you're a plugin author, it's I can't stress how much more helpful it is just to bookmark the plugin page so you can get to it whenever you want. And I've clicked on yours to sort by plugins I've written and only plugins I've written so that I can get to them. This was my first plugin. So when we go and we look at best practices, distinctive title, use emojis. That's what I did with my very first plugin. My title includes an emoji in the front that helps describe what the plugin does, and it has my little signature sparkles at the end because I use that to show that it was a plugin by me. I'm so glad you have my plugin. I hope it's been helpful. It's switched to first person past tense, and I could say switch from third person to first person, but it's kind of implied by the title. And the longer and more cumbersome a title is, the harder it is for everybody to scroll through the plugins page and be like, okay, am I going to process that entire title while I'm scrolling the page? So it's as short as I could get it while being descriptive. And then this is the description box. If you look at, let's just look at the most popular plugin. Most popular plugin is James Yu's Sudowrite. Now, his description, he may be one of the founders of Sudowrite, but all you get here is continues the passage of text at the cursor or highlight using the Weaver model, which is an unfiltered model suitable for NSFW content, not safe for work content. This is the right button that it can take the heat, and it outputs about 400 words at a time. Now he shows you the instructions right there. So you can see the what the AI is being told, but well, actually, he may not have a very detailed description, but it does meet it has a distinctive title. It uses emojis. He tells you what the plugin does by continuing the passage of text at the cursor and continuing it immediately from the end of the passage, following the tone and plot. It's not a wall of text. He doesn't mention how many words you can highlight at the time. I would assume it's somewhere around 400 words, but who knows? He does say that it can output 400 words. He mentions that it uses the Weaver model. Yes, and this plugin is probably becoming obsolete because of the upgrades to the right interface in your projects, as Tomas said in chat. Let's see, tips, tricks, and warnings. Not really, none of those. There's no plugin prompts. It's not going to be relevant for everything, so I don't think that's needed. Related plugins, there's no links to related plugins or contact info feedback. Those are optional anyways, but this is the most popular plugin, and this is all you've got for a description. It's short, it's sweet, it is kind of to the point, but it does leave some open questions about using it. Whereas I try to spell out absolutely everything you need to know before you use my plugins. So this is my description, the basic description. This plugin will switch your third-person prose to first-person POV, past tense, based on who you've indicated is the main character in the series Bible's characters field. I'm going to have to actually be testing this plugin in the coming weeks, as we have a new characters interface in beta right now. I don't know how many of you are in the beta for the characters box, but I will have to test all of my character related plugins with the new plugin fields as they will be rolling out eventually once they come out of beta. All plugins will start working slightly differently because of that. Now, so that's what the plugin does, is it changes the POV. I broke up the walls of text with white space, and I use these exclamation marks as bullet points. I'm not sure I'm happy with the exclamation marks as bullet points. I'm still trying to sort that out. Maybe we can come to some sort of decisions about what works best when you're looking at plugin descriptions, because I do it differently in some of my other plugins. How many words can the plugin input and output? I say you can highlight up to 5,000 words to allow for enough output, and since it is switching the POV of your highlighted text, it's going to output about the same amount of words. It's usually very similar in word count. This will not rewrite the text you highlight to make it sound better in the new POV. It will only switch up the perspective, so you can decide how you would like it to rewrite it yourself. For tips, tricks, and warnings, this was kind of a warning, letting people know that it's still the text that you get as a result from this plugin is still going to need some work, but it's not going to change the perspective and change your prose, because you might not like the way it changes your prose. You just want it to change the POV first so that you can work on the prose separately, possibly with another plugin. And I keep meaning to make a plugin that will that will work as like part 2 of this one, but I haven't gotten around to it yet. I do mention the model that this plugin uses, which is GPT 3.5 Turbo 16K. That does allow up to 24,000. Is it 12,000? Might be 12,000 words of input plus output. And I didn't have any example plugin prompts for this because it's just highlighted text that you want to change. Related plugins is something I do have specifically for this family of plugins where you're switching POV. This was my first plugin ever, and then other people wanted it, instead of first person past tense, to switch to first person present tense, so I made that one afterwards. Now you can't click on these links, but people can highlight, copy, and then paste in their address bar to go to that plugin, or they can copy the name of it and use the search plugins function that way. But there's also a switch from first person to third person, which is not as common, but some people may want it, so I made that too. We did that in class one week. And you don't have to do this, but I've started putting plugin version numbers so that you can keep track of how many edits have taken place since I created the plugin. And this one has been the same since I first wrote it back in November, except for the description here, which I added things to it. But the plugin itself has the same instructions. Here's an example of one of my plugins that does not use all of the best practices. It needs some work. I'm pretty good at the white space. There's plenty of white space blocking or breaking up the blocks of text. The title is short, sweet, to the point, uses some emojis to make it more recognizable. It does tell you what to do. It tracks how much time passes in each of your chapters. It's useful for existing manuscripts that utilize real-world clocks and calendars. If you have a fantasy series where you don't have, 24-hour days, 7-day weeks, 12 months in a year, it's not going to work for you. But it would work in a real-world calendar situation. And this is one thing where I do give example plugin prompts. Nope, wrong one. Where I tell people and also it's a tip or trick thing where it works best if you add preceding text at the beginning of each chapter to keep track of dates and times, starting with chapter 1. If the actual date does not matter to your story, you may choose an arbitrary date to begin on, just to, oops, that's bad English here, just to have a starting place for measuring the entire time span of your novel. And I did test it this way to say, this is an example prompt. The previous chapter took place on December 24th, 2023. We need to determine how much time passes in this chapter. So this would be in the preceding text at the top of my chapter document, and then I would highlight the text after it so that it could analyze the rest of the chapter to see how much time passes. And I make sure to warn people not to select this text when highlighting the rest of the chapter before running the plugin. I do tell the model, it again, GPT 3.5 Turbo 16K, which allows for 12,000 words of input plus output. So this should allow you to run it on chapters of up to about 10,000 words, because you want to give it some space to let you know about all the ways that time passes in your chapter. But it would help to use some of the bullet point emojis, and I could add version information, and I'll get to this one because I specifically added a feedback part to my sensitivity reader disability plugin. I am disabled. I spend most of my day in bed unless I'm using the bathroom or going to a doctor's appointment. So this was a plugin that was near and dear to my heart. It has a very long description, which it does get a little, even with the white space, it's a little wall of texty. And I could probably improve that. I could probably improve it by asking GPT or somebody to make it better. But again, even though it doesn't have all of the other best practice things in here, I have the bullet point to let people know it uses the Mixtral Instruct model. And you can highlight up to 10,000 words. And because I wanted to, state that I did not create all of the words for the instructions to the plugin. I did adapt it from guidelines found in articles and blog posts written by other disabled activists. Because when I tried instructing the model in my own words, it was just too complicated and I was not getting the type of feedback from it that I wanted. So I thought that adding credit sort of would be helpful. And I do have the version in here. I updated this just before class started. I tweaked some of the phrasing for the AI's instructions to get better quality feedback. So these are things you can do with saying that if you are actively updating your plugins when new models come out or new features on Sudowrite, change the way you need to instruct the plugin, keeping track of a version. And I just start with 1.0, and then every time I edit it, I just change the decimal point. At some point, it might get to 2.0. Who knows? Let's see. There's some other examples I wanted to show. Texting in character. Again, I have the emojis, and the title tells you exactly what this plugin is going to do. I have kind of a clickbaity description in the beginning. Does your story include text conversations between characters? Want to make sure your characters have unique texting styles? And then I have my exclamation mark bullet points. This plugin will reference the characters section of the story Bible. That's something I left off of the list, is making sure everybody knows if your plugin is going to draw from any part of Story Bible, you need to tell people which parts of their Story Bible need to be filled out in order for the plugin to work. Let's actually write that. Which parts of Story Bible does the plugin use? Because that is important. If people don't have if people don't have that information in their Story Bible, the plugin just isn't going to work, and that's going to be frustrating for them because they added it thinking it was going to do this thing, and then they don't have it in there and they're like, why isn't this working? It's frustrating. They remove it. They don't get to use the functionality. And this goes for any type of plugin that uses any part of Story Bible. Because not everybody uses Story Bible, especially when importing a manuscript that's already been written to work on editing in Sudowrite. You may not have all those things filled out. In order to run this plugin in particular, I had to create Story Bible sections that I didn't use to write the manuscript, but I did need it for the plugin. And for this one, I say there's a 300 word maximum for highlighted text, because you shouldn't need more than 100 words of highlighted text most of the time. Your highlighted text should provide instructions about who is texting and what the text string is about. You can use one of these templates for the instructions with relevant changes, or come up with your own. I changed bullet points to be little mobile phones because, I mean, that's what this is. It's a texting plugin to make a to have your characters text with each other and create the conversation. So I have examples of highlighted text to instruct the plugin that I took from some of my favorite fiction. This first one is from Bobiverse. That the first book is We Are Legion, We Are Bob by Dennis E. Taylor. And I just picked 2 characters. Oh, what emoji did I use for my sexting plugin? Which is far more popular than just the plain old texting plugin. I used the emoji and the water, the emoji and this water droplets, because those are popular texting emojis when sexting. And yes, I use the water droplets here too. But this isn't a spicy class, so we're gonna just go back to regular old texting plugin here. And this one, I have Howard looking at his phone and he sees a text from Bridget. Bridget's text says, "Hey." Howard texts her back to ask about Stefan. Bridget says that Stefan is fine before exchanging mildly flirtatious text with Howard. Now, in the story, these characters would not text each other, although maybe that is what they're... I'm not going to get into that. This example is from the Black Ocean series by... Oh, why am I spacing on his name? J.S. Morin. Highly recommended if you haven't read it. he has these 16 book omnibuses available on Audible for like a single credit for 16 books. There's like more than 80 hours of of audio per omnibus, and there are currently one, two, three, four of them, and he's in the middle of the fifth one. I have Carl picks up his phone to text Tanny, asking her for help to fake his death because Harmony Bay has sent bounty hunters after him. Tanny tells Carl that he is not her responsibility anymore, that she is not going to help him get out of this. Carl tells Tanny that he will call her father instead, and she tells him fine, and that he should fuck off and leave her alone. And I actually generated all of these texts to test how the plugin worked, and these were so amusing. But I wanted very different examples because people write different kinds of things. So I wanted to have examples of different types of text conversations their characters might have. This third one is from the Dresden Files. Harry texts Maggie to check up on her to make sure she is safe. Maggie replies to let Harry know that she is okay. She also tells him about something funny her dog Mouse did. Harry ends the text chain by telling Maggie, I love you, pumpkin. Limit to 3 to 4 texts each. Because that one was getting really long, and they just would not exchange a lot of text if either one of them were able to use cell phones, which in universe, Harry cannot use a cell phone. And then I have a special bullet point. I used a star because I made this plugin with Ream authors in mind. Ream Stories is a platform. It's a subscription platform for authors, and they have this really cool formatting feature where you can highlight the text and format it as like left text message or right text message, which is fantastic. And if you're posting your story on Ream, you can, this will generate, you know what, we're gonna edit this one just so I can show you. We'll pick this one. Oh, right. I didn't change the I'd have to input the characters. So we're not gonna run an example for this because that doesn't matter. But it did come out with some output. Carl in all caps with occasional misspellings. Hey Tanny, I'm in real trouble. Harmony Bay sent bounty hunters after me. Tanny, proper grammar, polite tone, but firm. I'm sorry, Carl. I can't help you anymore. You need to face the consequences of your actions. Carl, come on, Tanny, you owe me. I helped you out so many times. Tanny, I've moved on from that part of my life, Carl. I don't owe you anything. Carl, well, I guess I'll just call your dad then. Tanny, do what you have to do, Carl. Just leave me out of it. Carl, fine. I'll just fuck off and leave you alone. Tanny, goodbye, Carl. Don't contact me again. And that kind of works in character for them. But that goes to show you what these instructions could do, even though I did not fill out the character field and it pulled the default dummy text in that talk about the boy and his dog and stuff like that. But in order to use the plugin, I gave everybody instructions on exactly how it works so that they won't get frustrated and be like, why isn't this doing what I want it to do? Well, you have to tell it what to do, and you have to highlight that, and then it will generate your text. And just to, since I know I can do it without the characters information filled in, this is the one where it says limit to 3 to 4 texts each. Oh, this pulled in the other characters from the dummy text. So that didn't work very well. So, yeah, following the instructions, it says it will reference the characters section. So if it's not filled out properly, you're not going to get good results. And it tells you that straight up. So you're not going to be surprised if things don't look right to you. I'm not sure if there were any more specifically that I wanted to. Oh, this is not a spicy class, but this is a plugin. Melody has a great plugin. It's called Sex Scene in Detail, but it includes preceding text because by default, when plugins were launched, everything looked at preceding text. And my problem when I was trying to run it was that it wasn't just rewriting the highlighted text I wrote, but it was rewriting the preceding text as well. And it was using up a lot of credits to do that because it used one of the more expensive models too. So I wanted to make sure everybody knew that Melody was the original author of the Sex Scene in Detail plugin. I do provide a link to her original plugin, which, you know, I'll show you. This plugin replaces vague generalized descriptions with specific explicit detail, takes sex scenes from summary to scene. I have example input and example output. And the reason why I was able to create a different version of her plugin was because she did provide visible instructions. And all I did was delete this preceding text part. And it only has highlighted text. But if you look at it, they're otherwise the same plugin. Hers does use a more expensive model. Mine uses a much cheaper model, which I specified as Open Hermes Mistral 7B. I explained why other models were not used. Actually, I think I like the stars as bullet points better. I think they're more attention grabbing. What do y'all think? Because we've done exclamation marks. We've got these little hollow point bullet points. I think the stars really kind of grab your attention and pop though. I might standardize my plugins to use stars as bullet points. And I'm sharing this with you because if you see how I've worded my descriptions and how I format them, I'm not taking, saying I'm the only one who can do it this way. I want other people to, basically copy my formatting so that users of everybody's plugins get the best experience possible. So yeah, for this, I have, her instructions only, it gives the description of what the plugin does. It gives you example input and example output, but I let people know that the maximum length of the highlighted text is only 1,000 words for this plugin. Recommended length is much less than that. Stick to a paragraph or two. the most customizable results without wasting credits, although I did choose a model that is really low cost, so wasting credits isn't really a concern. I might just delete that part of the description because it's not necessary. Let's see. Are there any other plugins you'd like me to look at the instructions for? Um, to let's see what I have for this one. Okay, for my stop repeating yourself kit bashing rewrite plugin. Yeah, 1,000 words of output is like 4 pages of mapping someone's hips. Yes, you can you can get some way too detailed scenes sometimes. So that's why, you don't necessarily need all of the capacity for a given model. Um, for this, I was like, do you tend to piece together multiple versions of your chapters, aka kit bashing, which Nicole is all about kit bashing if you attend any of her classes. Um, she's really good at it. I still have work to do, and that's why I wrote a plugin for it. Because does it sometimes lead to accidentally repeating dialogue and descriptions? Can this result in bogged down pacing that may frustrate your readers? Yeah, me too. And this is the sales pitch part of it. There are loads of plugins out there for rewriting your text to remove repetition, but most of them were last edited when plugins were still in beta, and there were stricter limits on how much text you could highlight and rewrite. That's some exposition for why I wrote the plugin, because there are a lot of plugins that do essentially this, but they use the very limited models we had available to us in like November and December. We've gotten a lot more models that we can use for our plugins now, as we went over in last week's class, which is up on YouTube. I don't think I still need to upload it so it shows up on Discord, but it will be there too. I indicate that it uses the Mixtral Instruct model, which is one of my favorite LLMs for plugins, because it allows up to 24,000 words of input plus output, which is phenomenal. And I explained that it includes the plugin instructions and what you've written as your story Bible's genre and style boxes. It should be able to handle entire chapters of up to 10,000 words, which I've set as a hard limit to ensure we don't overtax the model and get an error message. And these are all my little tips, tricks, and warnings. While you don't have to fill out the genre and style boxes in Story Bible, you may not get the type of results you're aiming for if you don't. The plugin instructions specifically tell the AI not to rewrite anything that doesn't need to be rewritten, so you don't have to worry about losing any carefully crafted sentences that don't get repetitive and bog down the narrative. It's important to communicate things like that to your plugin users so that they don't think, oh, if this is going to rewrite my entire thing and I really like this text here and I want to make sure I don't lose it, this reassures people that it's not going to do that to them. In testing the plugin, I noticed that when I used a dinkus, which is, like using 3 stars or 3 dashes or something like that as line breaks in your chapter, the model will stop there and not finish the rest of your text. So remove it before running the plugin. That might not be true anymore. I think that may have been fixed since I first wrote the plugin. I'm not entirely sure. I'll have to do some more testing for that, but I wanted to make sure people knew that in case they had a dinkus in their prose that they highlighted and it was just not generating any text after that because it only stopped and looked at the first part. In case the plugin does remove any of your favorite sentences, insert the resulting rewrite into your document below your original chapter, or copy the text and paste it into a new chapter. This way you can read and compare the before and after and rescue any prose you didn't want to lose. That's another heads up for people, so that they don't just use the insert button for the results and it replaces their original text. Then they're like, oh wait, I don't know. I mean, you can go into your history and stuff like that, but it's just easier if you do it this way. And also, because I was getting error messages, if the plugin is working properly, it will tell you how many words it removed at the end. If it cuts off before that, there was a problem with the model. This did happen several times during testing, but it should work if you try again later. This is also managing expectations and reducing frustration. When my story was getting cut off too soon and it wasn't rewriting things properly, I was getting really irritated. I was like, what do I have to do to make this plugin work? And that's when I found out the Dinkus thing, but also like sometimes the models are just having temper tantrums. They do that sometimes. So I gave this one, because I was getting so many errors at the time, I gave it instructions to include how many words were removed, specifically so I would know that it completed the task and didn't just stop in the middle. If it didn't give me the number of words it removed, it didn't finish processing the commands. So I guess that's pretty much it. We went over all of these things that are good to have in your plugin descriptions. Not everything has to be in every plugin description, but they're all things to consider. Will this help users who are reading, like clicking through the plugin directory and like, is this going to, how much information does it give you on how this is going to work? This doesn't tell you how many characters it takes into account, how many you're allowed to highlight, how much it's going to generate. It doesn't tell you any of that. But it's by one of the founders of Sudowrite, so a lot of people are using it and trying it out. I happen to be a user of it too. Is there a book that explains how to create a plugin? There currently is not. I know that Nicole Broussard has a Sudowrite book out there, but there are no Sudowrite plugin books. I suppose that's something I could consider. But I do have the foundational courses that I taught last month for Plugin School. We went through, the first class was how to use plugins. The second class was creating basic mode plugins, which, let's close this, and we won't use that one. Let's go to edit. There's basic mode, which it looks like you edited this plugin in the advanced editor and is no longer compatible with the basic editor. But that's what we did first, so I could give everybody an introduction to how to write a plugin. Then we went on to how to create advanced mode plugins with all of these different options that you can tweak. And then last week we went through and compared the output of all the different AI models currently available to plugin authors for building your plugins to run on. So those classes are recorded and on my YouTube channel. Um, they're each about an hour long, and they're also, yep, they're also uploaded to Discord, not necessarily the same week that they were taught, but they are putting them up on Discord as well. Um, I have heard that they might not have the video part where I share my screen. Somebody said they got audio only. I hope that's not the case. But in case it is, that's why I have them up on my YouTube channel too. I think we're going to stop the video right now. So, and we'll take some questions afterwards. So I'm going to thank you all for coming to Plugin School this week so we could go over best practices for plugin authors. Next week, we will be meeting at same time, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and then whatever time that works out in your time zone. Plugin School occurs every Monday at that time, and we just have different topics every week. Thank you for coming, and I will see you on next one.